Xbox On. Welcome to Xbox On, a podcast with one host about one console, Xbox. I'm said host Jesse DeRosa, and on today's episode, we'll be talking about the latest Xbox news for the week of April 4th, 2024, including images of an all-digital white Xbox Series X have surfaced online. Take-Two officially acquires Gearbox Entertainment as they work on the next entry in the Borderlands franchise. Let's discuss Xbox's quote-unquote UI problem as we get into tons of great listener comments and more. On this day in Xbox history, in the year 2005, 19 years ago, Hello Kitty Roller Rescue was released for the original Xbox in Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, and Taiwan. Bet you weren't guessing that. He said, oh, he's probably just going to do some other fucking Ubisoft, some Rainbow Six Vegas, some kind of... Nope! Gotcha, motherfucker. Hello Kitty, Roller Rescue. God, I wish it was Halo Kitty. Imagine Master Chief, but with a cat instead of Cortana. That'd be great. Roller Rescue, yeah, that's right. These, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, and Taiwan. Of course, a fucking super important game for those markets. Basically, the Pokemon of the time for that region of the Earth. So, yeah, shout out to Hello Kitty Roller Rescue. I remember very vividly everything about all the times I didn't play that game. But guys, welcome to episode 253 of the Xbox On podcast, where not every week we're going to pay attention to a game you've heard of. Sometimes we're going to mention games that I myself haven't even heard of, that we're just talking about for the sake of filling in the airtime. Mike Clark writes in and starts us off this week and says, Xbox On, now you're living the high life podcast. Looking forward to it, Jesse. Thank you, Mike Clark. Let's get into what I suspect will probably go down as one of the most popular, famous, noteworthy Xbox On episodes ever to be released. And why is that, you might ask? Well, because it's episode 253, you idiot. Don't you know what happens, generally speaking, to podcasts once they reach the 253 mark? I'm not going to insult your intelligence by explaining it to you, so I'm just going to assume you know. Oh, you know. All right, guys. Let's start out this week by talking about a couple of notable games releasing this week. Generally, we got, I feel like, between like 3 to 7 games to mention every week. It is definitely not a big week for game releases, which is fine, but there is one game I did want to point out because until maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I didn't even know this game was getting a sequel, and to my surprise, it's coming to Xbox, which is weird because the first one didn't, but coming to Xbox One and Xbox Series consoles this week. In fact, it's out as of the day this podcast goes live, April 4th, Freedom Planet 2. So if you're an Xbox gamer, maybe this is a game that's not on your radar or you've never heard of it before, it's because the first entry wasn't on Xbox. It was a Steam/Wii U game, and then I think it eventually came to PlayStation, but never came to Xbox. Unless I'm deeply mistaken, but I think the original one came out in like 2014. I remember playing it on my Wii U. That's how I experienced the game. But Freedom Planet is notable because I don't know if anyone who worked on this game had previously worked on Sonic video games, but this game is very clearly directly inspired by Sonic the Hedgehog. It feels kind of like Sonic 3 meets like Sonic Advance style game, but it's cool. You play as these they're like cat alien type creatures, and they, it's a 2D platforming game that's pretty much exactly like Sonic, except when you run, you're on a motorcycle, and when you're platforming, you're just a spinning, free-forming, I don't know, what are you, some kind of cat type animal? I don't know. But Freedom Planet, the first one is pretty damn good. I don't think they're technically cats. I don't know what they are. They're very furry adjacent, which is one thing that makes me incredibly uncomfortable about these creatures, but I just want to point it out because I really liked the first game while I didn't give a shit at all about the story or the characters, which is something they try to drive hard with that first game. I did find it fun as a fan of the Sonic series. It basically is just a Sonic kind of homage style game. And if you're a fan of classic 2D Sonic or even some more of the later, I guess, how would you put it now? Sonic Advance is like a 20-year-old franchise at this point. If you're a fan of the Game Boy Advance Sonic Advance games developed by Dimps, I feel like this is a game that might be right up your alley. But yeah, it's getting a sequel. It's coming to Xbox. It'd be nice if they put the first one on Xbox. I'd like to replay this, maybe play both of these on Xbox and show my support. But nonetheless, Freedom Planet 2 is out as of the time you're listening to this podcast. Now, you guys, that's just going to bring us right on into our corrections, mild amusement, stories, updates. We don't have any corrections. What am I fucking talking about? It's there in the outline of the podcast, but I almost never put anything in there. Not because I get everything right, but because I'm a fucking lazy piece of shit. Guys, mildly amusing stories. I feel like this is always the way we really find the groove of the Xbox On podcast, is by just talking about some mildly amusing stories, getting our feet wet in the world of Xbox. And then it's only then that I'm really able to start derailing things. I feel like most podcasts you listen to that have a lot of non sequiturs and little inside stories and little jabs and just, unrelated content. I feel like most podcasts kind of start out with that. It's usually like 2 or 3 hosts bouncing back on one another. It's like, oh yeah, me and my wife were in the car this week and we got stopped at a red light. And then the guy's like, the thing about red lights is they're red, they're not blue. And then they're like, oh, speaking of blue, I got blue balls, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like 8 minutes into the podcast and they're like 7 conversations deep and none of them are about the subject matter of the podcast. You listen to a podcast about hockey and they're in the middle of talking about fucking the price of a Snickers bar at a Walmart. And it's like, that's, I feel like that's kind of the natural, it's like a way of warming your audience up. It's like, hey, the podcast is starting. Here are the personalities, some light, warm banter. It's like meeting someone at the restaurant, sitting around waiting for your table. It's like you do that before you start fucking breaking bread. I get it. That is, I feel like, a natural way for a podcast to work. Xbox On is completely fucking broken in that I feel like we do that very same thing, but in a totally different manner, because in being a podcast where it's just me talking to myself, there's no real opportunity for me to have a warm up. There's not a person I can be like, how's your fucking week going, Jeff? Oh, that's great. Yeah, tell me about your train ride to work. I can't do that stuff. So I gotta start out talking about something. Might as well talk about video games. And then it's only once we've gone through a couple stories, a little warm up, gotten our feet wet with some of the Xbox happenings, that I'm like, all right, that was a good little bit of Xbox-related conversation. Now, here's what I've been eating. It's just a hard fucking left turn in the middle of a podcast. I kind of like that. It's almost like if you went to a restaurant and you walked in and immediately the server was like, hey, Mr. DeRosa, we have your table ready right this way. And they sit you down, and before you can even fucking get your seat adjusted, the server's like, and here's your entree, sir, the ossobuco, just the way you ordered it, or like it, whatever. And you're just like, what the fuck? And then you're halfway through your dinner, and then your server's just like, if you'll please get up from your table and come over here, we have to go into the private dining room so we can fucking play 3 rounds of Super Smash Brothers, and then you can go back to your table and finish your dinner. And that's the restaurant equivalent of that's the dining experience equivalent to what Xbox On is for your ears and your mind. Listen, if anything, I think this is something that is keeping your mind active. It's keeping you engaged, and it's keeping you smart. It's keeping you astute on your feet, really, because in order for your brain to be like, okay, an Xbox podcast, play, and then it's 20 minutes of Xbox conversation, and then we're talking about what I've been eating, and then we're talking about something at Disney World, and then we're back to video games. It's that's got to be that's really testing your brain and seeing if you're good at lane switching and jumping conversation to conversation. If you can follow along to a podcast such as this one that engages in that kind of activity, I think it probably says a lot about your brain. It says that you probably have quite a large brain, and alongside with that, as studies have shown, large brain, large penis. So you're probably, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your butt or nothing, but you're probably a fucking hung ass, intelligent, beautiful motherfucker. And so thank you for listening to Xbox On. Clearly you are superior to most people you come into contact with, so don't feel afraid to be a little arrogant. It just means that you're better. It doesn't mean they're not worth, you don't gotta go Hitler on them and put them in a fucking camp of some sort, but you're just a little better than them, and that's okay. We can't all be equal. Xbox news, let's get back to it. So the mildly amusing stories, as we were starting off with. All right, let's switch gears from concentration camps and concentrate on Minecraft, a family-friendly game that is getting a native version developed and put underway on the PlayStation 5. That's right. This Xbox franchise is getting a native version for PlayStation, according to PlayStation Game Size, a social media account that regularly reveals games early by trawling the back end of Sony's console store. According to VGC, they report that only on the PlayStation 4 version of Minecraft is it playable on PS5 via backwards compatibility. That's how PlayStation 5 users are able to access Minecraft. On Xbox, however, there was a recent update to support 4K visuals. However, people playing Minecraft on the Xbox, for all intents and purposes, are pretty much just playing the Xbox One version of Minecraft. Really, the game is just kind of the same game. There was never some native, ground-up, rebuilt, next-gen version of the game. So last year, the Xbox Series X and S version of the game appeared on various ratings boards. We talked about it a little bit on the podcast. There were murmurings that a native version for new Xboxes would be coming. However, in a statement to VGC, Microsoft claimed that the listings were part of standard approvals, and it regularly goes through these approvals through various ratings boards, so there was nothing to announce at the time. But one feature that could potentially be supported in an optimized version of the game for current-gen consoles would be ray tracing, which is a feature Microsoft teased back when the Series X launched in 2020, but never really stuck around. I think they briefly tested it in one version of the game and then it went away. Anyway, point being, this is weird. You would assume that if Microsoft is playing a native version of Minecraft for PS5, that they are developing that in conjunction with the native version for Xbox Series X and S, because I mean, if we're all, listen, man, it's been like a month, okay? It's been like an entire 4 weeks since Microsoft was like, fuck it, we'll put some older games on PlayStation 5. If we're already at the point just 1 month later where Microsoft's like, you know what, and we're making new versions of old games native for PlayStation and Xbox users can go suck a dick, then, I mean, if that were really what's happening here, if that's really the case, then I would just say, don't listen to a goddamn thing Phil Spencer says. Xbox is getting out of the console business. Don't be a fucking idiot. Just know that that's a fact, that that's what's happening for certain. But I don't think that's what's happening. I do believe that they are, if this rumor is to be believed, that they are also working on an Xbox native version for Series S and X, or this is, if Microsoft's statement from last year to VGC is to be believed, that this could be a similar thing where they have to, that this could be part of a standard approval, a regulatory type thing with the ESRB, and maybe that's why, or some other nation's rating board, and maybe that's why this has popped up and people believe there's a PlayStation version, or PlayStation 5 native version coming. But I mean, that's that'd be a fucking ballsy move for Microsoft to be like, we are so dedicated to Xbox hardware. We love Xbox. We have new generations of Xbox hardware in development right now. We're so dedicated to the console. It's where our number one focus is on, is those players who are most hardcore players who buy the console and support the brand that way. And then on, with the other hand, like just feeding all your shit to PlayStation while you give them content that not even Xbox is getting. I just don't see that being what the thing that's going on here. So I feel like Occam's razor suggests that this simply is just, a thing that's happening to all modern hardware, or something that is not happening at all. So I wouldn't think much of it, but hey, best case scenario, Xbox Series X and S are probably getting a native version of Minecraft, which doesn't mean a fucking thing to me, but I'm sure someone out there is like, yippee! So yeah, enjoy your game that looks like a fucking N64 game, running natively on your 27 teraflop Xbox Series X. You made it. Your dreams are coming true. All right, let's talk about Warcraft, another game that is old but always relevant, I guess. From VGC, the general manager of the Warcraft series says that Blizzard isn't against the idea of licensing out the Warcraft IP to third-party developers. In an interview with IGN, John Haidt was asked if Blizzard would ever do what Riot did with League of Legends and hand the Warcraft IP over to another studio for a spin-off game. Haidt replied that Blizzard was open to the idea, but it would only agree to do such a deal if the circumstances were perfect, saying, quote, "We're certainly open to people who really get it and have a cool idea about how to express Warcraft, and if we feel like it's aesthetically they're going to be able to hit that bar, I think then we will find the right partner, with the right situation. I think especially if they have the proficiency in a game genre that we don't really have, I think that'd be an ideal partner for us to work with, and we're open to that, but that's relatively new." And quote, Haidt explained that while he'd like to see the Warcraft IP spreading out in a wider range into a wider range of players, he's wary of the existing players losing out as a result. saying, quote, "I'm open to it because I want to have Warcraft out there as a little more than it is now. And I also don't want to have us grow so fast that we're no longer able to serve the audiences we have. But I think that there's some benefit to leveraging other companies that share our love for it and have really cool ideas, share beliefs in the quality, and have the ability to execute on it. But now that's probably a pretty small list, right?" This feels like a weird idea. Listen, whatever. He's just answering a hypothetical and being like, yeah, we'd be open to putting, to working with someone else to license out Warcraft and do whatever. You think about like Bungie makes Halo, Creative Assembly makes Halo Wars, something like that. Like whatever. You could do a good job. I'm sure there's a lot of cool stuff. I'm sure a fucking Warcraft MOBA or Warcraft, I don't know, man. What else could you do? A single player RPG in the Warcraft, like a third person Western style Bethesda type RPG set in the Warcraft universe. I'm sure it could be done. Maybe Larian can, since they're not working on Baldur's Gate 4, maybe they can make a Warcraft narrative single player RPG or something like that. That's all well and good. I just feel like this is such a weird franchise for that, because even though Warcraft is still relevant and World of Warcraft is still popular and has a really strong player base and continues to persist and get new content and serve an audience, I just feel like Warcraft is one of those IP where it's been so long and it serves such a specific niche in a specific corner of the market that it's like, I feel like if you have a new idea and you feel like Warcraft could fit into it, it's like, it just sounds like you just have a new idea for a new IP more than anything. So why have to shoehorn Warcraft into that, especially if it's something that Blizzard themselves haven't created? It's like, just go make your fucking new thing and come up with something creative and unique. And if you do have a fun, like, licensed IP kind of idea from a different developer, like a spin-off style or, some other kind of Warcraft game, it's like, I don't know, isn't that kind of like, in a way, a little too late, or ostracizing your market? Because kind of to what Blizzard's president is saying here, it's like, I let me put it this way. I grew up in a house where Warcraft was Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 3. My older brother and my younger brother, Cronky, absolutely adored Warcraft. This game was like their fucking livelihood. And it was such an influential game to my family that I'm pretty sure everyone in our house played, minus mom and dad, played Warcraft at some point or another. Even to the point where I'll straight up say, while I wasn't a huge Warcraft fan growing up, I definitely, thanks to my exposure to Warcraft 2 and 3, grew an appreciation and respect for the real-time strategy genre because of these Warcraft games. And, I later grew up to like other kind of RTSs more, like Halo Wars and Command and Conquer and things like that. And, RTS adjacent style genres and games, but whatever. The point is, to me, that was always Warcraft. But then World of Warcraft came along and totally said, fuck that. No, this is Warcraft. Think about this. When you think about Warcraft, now you think about this. If you want to think of a real-time strategy game, that's what StarCraft is for. Fuck Warcraft 3. Fuck the Wrath of the Lich King or whatever the fuck. No, was that a WoW expansion or was that the Warcraft 3 expansion? Who fucking cares? The point is, there was a point in time where Warcraft was this relevant, current, new, fresh IP that then morphed into something else. Think Titanfall into Apex Legends, right? But that was like timely. Since World of Warcraft came and kind of took its place on the stage and cast its shadow over the traditional Warcraft series, it's been like 20 fucking years. So I feel like to try and do that again, not necessarily to say that this new IP or that this new Warcraft spin-off game would be something to overshadow World of Warcraft, but to try and do something like that 20 years later, like do a series, I don't know. It just seems like it's like, what are we doing mining this thing? Like, isn't this a little old? But then again, I think Warcraft did just recently get a mobile game, and by saying I think, I should say I know because I fucking played it. Yes, I guess technically, you can do things like mobile spin-off games or party games, or I don't know. It just feels weird. I feel like I get from a business decision why everything is like, oh, well, we should borrow the license for Warcraft to make this kind of game. Yeah, I get it, because it's safe and games are costly to make and you want to have some guaranteed built-in audience. And so that's the appeal for a publisher or developer to work on a Warcraft game as opposed to doing something original and new and unique. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, is Warcraft really that IP? I don't know. I feel like I'm maybe making too much of a story out of this, but I just, I was reading this quote, and I'm just like, why the fuck are we talking about Warcraft this way? I mean, even more contemporary Blizzard games like Overwatch, I feel like are at this point are kind of like just old and done with, or maybe that's just me being so out of touch with the PC market that like I don't realize how incredibly important games like World of Warcraft and Overwatch currently are to this day. But I don't know, I think it's at least safe to assume that games like this are definitely nowhere near where they were, you know, in their heyday. World of Warcraft hasn't been the hottest shit in the world for maybe 15 years, and Overwatch hasn't been as hot as it once was for maybe, I don't know, fucking 6 years, 7 years. So to me, it just feels like, why they gotta be Warcraft? But that's not to say I wouldn't accept more Warcraft. I would love to get a proper Warcraft 4. Like, that's, if you're gonna try to go back to this franchise or do something new with this franchise, like, that's what I'd like to see. Or maybe a StarCraft 3 or something. For the love of God, Blizzard, please. You know, Diablo, I mean, no disrespect to Diablo, but in terms of everything you do outside of Diablo, can we just get something that's not like some fucking creepy ass anime jerk off fest? Can we get like a real Warcraft or StarCraft game? Please and thank you, Blizzard, and with Mikey Barr gone, and with Microsoft now owning you, Xbox now reigning supreme over the Blizzard studio, I would like to kindly ask that you guys no longer make Overwatch. Thank you. Please and thank you. The girl in the chicken egg costume with the glasses makes me want to jump on a bed of spikes. Or just one really large spike, because that would be more painful. One very large spike, please. All right, we only have one more story of mild amusement really to bring up today. And it's something exciting. It's not a layoff. No one exploded in a fucking airplane mid-sky or anything like that. It's a new game announcement, a brand new IP from a new developer. And it's something to pay attention to, something to get maybe a little excited about even. So Yellow Brick Games have announced their debut game, their debut title, Eternal Strands. Not a very strong name, but that's okay. Let's go on. A reveal trailer for the game was released this week, and the title is slated for release on Xbox Series, PC via Steam, and other platforms in the year 2025. That's right. Chief Creative Officer Mike Laidlaw, who is best known as the former creative director of Dragon Age over at BioWare, and studio he co-founded Yellow Brick Games in Quebec City, Canada in February of 2020. The team is comprised of veteran talent, notably with many ex-Ubisoft personnel and ex-BioWare Ubisoft. So we're talking about Dragon Age, Mass Effect, Assassin's Creed, Watch Dogs type people all coming together to create this new studio and this new game. And so they say in this trailer release, describing what the game is, they say, quote, "At the heart of Eternal Strands beats a revolutionary new system for gameplay interactions called heat spreads, cold chills, and real-time destruction, which allow for an unprecedented reactivity in combat," Yellow Brick Games claimed. They also say that in this third-person action-adventure game, you play as Bryn, a young and fearless weaver determined to recover her people's cultural home by uncovering the mysteries of the Enclave, a once powerful nation that now lies dormant. Fight epic 25-meter high climbable, that's how you know they're Canadian, 25-meter high climbable creatures known as arcs, while blending magical abilities with an arsenal of powerful weapons to keep the world from crumbling. The game is being created by a team of just 68 people, so it's a mid-sized developer, and they are working in the Unreal Engine 5, so needless to say, the game is probably going to look fucking beautiful. And best of all, the game is being self-published, so they don't have to worry about, meeting the cries and the demands of a tyrannical massive corporation, or whatever the fuck it is you're supposed to say. But I don't know. I like the art style. It's got kind of like modern day gamey art. Yeah, I don't know. Kind of, what do you want to say? Like a Blizzard meets League of Legends style. Yeah, maybe more like a League of Legends style art style, but it's not too cartoony like Fortnite or nothing. It looks good. It looks fine. It's like, hey, we were inspired by games like Zelda Breath of the Wild and also Overwatch, and we decided to make that art style happen in this game. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because, one, I just want to highlight a brand new game, brand new developer, and this game looks pretty fucking cool, actually. So you play as this girl. She looks pretty badass. She's got warrior armor on. The hack and slash combat looks pretty good, although it's probably not hack and slash whatsoever because everything is so fucking methodical and tedious and difficult nowadays. But she's got this, I don't know what it is, these strads, whatever they call it, strands. And they're awesome. It's like this ability that allows her to cast fire, cast a fucking vine whip, cast fucking frost whip, and destroy enemies, and like all this crazy shit. So she can use it for what it looks like based on the trailer, traversal as well as combat. And what looks compelling about the combat is it looks like, I don't know if it's predominantly, but at least what they're showcasing here is that you're fighting these giant climbable creatures. So it's like more action packed, like in the moment kind of fucking going hog on an enemy. But the type of enemy you're fighting and the way you're fighting them is very Shadow of the Colossus-esque, where there's like a whole mechanic built around just trying to like scale these creatures and get on top of these enemies. But it does look like she's also fighting some wolves and various forest-like creatures of the forest, probably the flora and the fauna that make up the valley that you're playing in this game. And I don't know, it just looks cool. It looks like it's got like some fun, typical third-person action sword-based combat, but also this really fun like magical component of controlling these different strands to attack, traverse, and interact, probably with like puzzle solving, because that's how all these games go in an environment. I don't know, that looks pretty cool. It doesn't look like anything super revolutionary or like a game I've dreamed of a game like this my whole life, but it looks like it has enough uniqueness and enough elements of other great games to build together something that seems cohesive and looks like it'd be pretty fun. I don't know, this isn't like a game that's got me like fucking, oh man, hype. I'm going to change my goddamn Twitter banner to the key art of this game and rename my Twitter profile Eternal Strands Fan #1 or whatever. You know, it's like I'm not going to go that crazy, okay? This isn't Sonic the Hedgehog here or nothing, but I am pleased enough with what I'm seeing and happy enough for the team behind it that I feel like this is a game I'll continue to keep an eye out for, and hopefully it comes out to be something really worth playing and paying attention to. So just shout out to Yellow Brick Games, shout out to the team, their independence, their new team, their new game, and wishing them all the best and all the success in the world. This looks like they got something pretty good cooking up over there. So we'll see more about that in the coming year or so. Guys, that's really going to do it for all of our opening news stories. I think it's time to get into the games I've been playing this week, talk about things like that as a little delta as we come down from this high. Take a break before we get into the main news topics of the week. So we'll talk about the game I've been playing. Spoiler alert, it's Wasteland 3, but I got something cool to say about it this time. And before I can tell you about that, before I can tell you about what I've been playing, I gotta first tell you about what it is I've been eating. And this week, oh boy, it's been such an uneventful one, but an important one, because while I haven't been going to super hot restaurants, and while I haven't been cooking the foods of the gods and various elk and deer and birds, I've been trying to be a good boy, trying to get back into it. A couple months ago, I was trying to be a good boy and go back to calorie counting, and then I fell off pretty hard for a couple weeks, and I'm like, no, you know what? You don't have to wait for some magical moment to get back on it. So I'm right back on. I'm just being a good boy. So my girlfriend a couple years ago introduced me to the concept of overnight oats. You take some oats, you take some oat milk or regular milk, you mix them together, you throw some special things in there, fruit, chocolate chips, agave, whatever you do, and you put them in the fridge overnight, and the next day you eat them. It's like this healthy, heart-healthy, high fiber, high protein, whatever kind of good thing to eat. And I think overnight oats are fine. That was kind of, I was introduced to them. I was like, these aren't half bad. I'm not going to go crazy about them. And then Disney started selling them. It was right around the time they opened up that Star Wars land, and the Star Wars land was like, come visit a galaxy far, far away. We have overnight oats. I don't know why the fuck they have overnight oats at Star Wars land, but they do, and the ones there are pretty good as well. I had them a couple times because I went through a phase where every day off work I would go to Star Wars land first thing in the morning. I would ride the new Star Wars ride, and then I would eat the Star Wars overnight oats, and those were really good as well. And then I kind of forgot about overnight oats for a while. But then this week I was like, what is a way I can get a lot of nutrients and stay very full while at work while not going over my calorie budget and just being a good boy overall? And I realized overnight oats are they're the best. They're the thing. If you're looking for a way to eat while at work without getting hungry and getting cravings and being a fat boy, dude, overnight oats. They're so easy to make. Literally just take a cup of oats, a cup of oat milk, throw it all together in a bowl, and I put a bunch of chia seeds in it just for the protein and to help fill you up. And then I put a bunch of a little agave syrup, or you can use maple syrup or whatever, just to kind of sweeten it up a little bit. And then dark chocolate chips. I just fuck the fruit. Most people will tell you to put fruit in there. Fruit's for fucking babies. If you're still breastfeeding, then put the fruit in. If not, be a real man. Just put dark chocolate chips in there. And it's great. It's like I do this huge bowl of these overnight oats. It's like 700 calories. And when I get to work and I'm like, man, all I got to eat today is overnight oats. It's like, it sounds fucking miserable, especially when your coworker's like, I'm going to go to Wendy's and eat 3 triple cheeseburgers. And you're just like, all I got is oats. But when you pull out the oats, it's weird because even if you're eating these things at like midday, 11 a.m., whatever the case may be, you get your big ass bowl of overnight oats. And if you make them right, and I make them right, it's pretty fucking satisfying. It's good to eat. I'm a chocolate whore, so throwing all that dark chocolate in there really helps make it appealing for me, but it's really been working for me. It's great because it takes like 2 seconds to make a bowl of these things, so when I'm trying to make lunch for work, it makes it very easy for me to follow through and actually do it and not spend money. And then secondly, it helps me stay on target with all my health goals. So I just want to give a shout out to the overnight oats. I know it's not as exciting as like Taco Bell has a new fucking quesadilla made with reindeer or something like that, but it is exciting in the sense that, man, I know there's some of you out there, it's not just me. Sometimes try to be a good boy, try to do the right thing. Overnight oats, don't sleep on them. They sound boring as hell, but they are delicious. And I'll take it a step further as saying, I've long since, probably high school, said that I just grew out of cereal, you know, as a bona fide Disney adult, a fan of Sonic the Hedgehog. There are a lot of childhood things I have not grown out of, but one thing I definitely have grown out of from my childhood is cereal. I never crave cereal. I see it in the grocery store. I'm like, that's fucking disgusting. Why the fuck would I want to eat a box of fucking Cookie Crisp or Cinnamon Toast Crunch at 8 o'clock in the morning? It's like, cereal has lost all of its appeal to me. I've become just the biggest, grumpiest old man when it comes to cereal. But overnight oats, I feel like, yes, you know, from a kid's perspective, that's very boring. It's very adult. But I will say, as the adult, overnight oats kind of gives me the joy and pleasure I once was granted from eating cereal as a youth. And I feel like it kind of serves it fills a similar hole in your heart where the cereal once was. But the difference is these overnight oats are actually healthy and good for me. And the cereal was just giving me pre-diabetes. So shout out to overnight oats. Also cheap as shit. You can get a giant fucking tub of Quaker's just dry oats. It's a giant fucking tubular thing of this. It's like $1.75 or something like that. It's so cheap. So goddamn cheap. And then you just get oat milk and whatever toppings you want. It's so cheap to stock up on all these ingredients, and it'll keep you full. I eat my bowl of oats, and I'm good till like 5:30. I get home from work around 5:30, and I'm good because I had my oats all day, and they kept me full. The chia seeds are a very important part of that, though. The chia seeds will definitely keep you full. They have no flavor, no anything, but you just mix them in with the oats, and it will keep you fucking fit as a fiddle, which is not what I'm trying to say, but I wanted to use that expression anyway. So that's why I've been eating the overnight oats. It's nothing special, but we need to balance ourselves sometimes. You know, we can't have 3 weeks in a row talking about Taco Bell and then not maybe mention a fucking green vegetable or something to balance it out. So there we are, overnight oats, technically a vegetable now. And that's it for what I've been eating. But that's not everything, because when I'm not eating my oats, and when I'm not sowing my oats, and when I'm not cosplaying as a goat, I am playing video games. And the video game I have been playing this past week should come as no surprise, Wasteland 3, but it's different this week because I finally rolled credits on Wasteland 3. That's right, I've completed the game. It took me as long as howlongtobeat.com said it would, which I found a little weird because I did take my time exploring and doing side quests and going off the beaten path a lot in this game. But yeah, it took me a little over 40 hours to beat this game. And I must say, save for a couple gripes, little things here and there, I think Wasteland 3, and maybe this is recency bias, I'm not sure yet. We'll see how I feel months and years from now. But I think Wasteland 3 might be my favorite role-playing game I've ever played. And when I say my favorite role-playing game, I'm not saying Destiny has role-playing elements. Destiny's not a role-playing game. Destiny's fucking Destiny. I don't know what that is. That's Bungie's little fucking weird offspring thing. I'm talking about, like, everything from the Japanese role-playing games to the fucking Bethesda Western-style role-playing games to the Mass Effects and the Dragon Ages. Now, it is absolutely worth mentioning. This is a genre, it's pretty wide net to cast to say RPG, especially as role-playing game mechanics have found their way into every genre, and RPG is the broadest it's ever been. But you know what I mean? In terms of, like, more specifically, these Western-style role-playing games, your Fallouts, your Elder Scrolls, Dragon Age, Witcher, these kinds of games. As far as this stuff goes, this is probably my favorite role-playing game I've ever played. And I just really did not expect that. I mean, who would have fucking guessed a game that I just booted up one day on my phone to test out Xbox cloud gaming one day for shits and giggles ended up sticking with me and becoming like this absolute masterpiece of an experience. I truly adore this game. I will say, because I've said so little negative about it, I do want to get these two things out of the way. The ending of this game is incredibly abrupt. The ending of this game reminds you so hard. Like, I got so invested in the storytelling and the world building of this game that I kept forgetting this was a crowdfunded budget kind of AA RPG. But the ending of the game, with how incredibly abrupt it is and how they don't really play anything out, it's just kind of like, yep, you did exactly what you set out to do, and now it's time to give you some credits. Like, the fact that that is how the game ends is a very glaring reminder of how, how this game was made due to crowdfunded money of patrons through I don't know, what they use, Indiegogo or Kickstarter or whatever. So you really feel that budget coming to an end when you beat this game. That's a really minor one, because I mean, especially with these kinds of role-playing games, I feel like more than any other game, they really embody that saying of like, it's about the journey, not the destination. So I don't think any way this game could have ended would have been as compelling or satisfying as the many hours I spent playing the game and experiencing the world and the characters, to get through that main quest line. But that being said, yeah, the ending was a little abrupt and a little underwhelming, I'll say, but not necessarily disappointing. It just wasn't anything spectacular or really memorable or special. Although they do a pretty fun little like music video thing at the end of the game, which is really fun, which I won't spoil any further details. But aside from that, the one gripe I do have with this game that I genuinely want to hold against this game, like if I were IGN and I wanted to give this game a 10 out of 10, I would 100% give this game a 9 out of 10 because, or like an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10, because this one issue with the game is so fucking egregious, which is that despite being a nearly 4-year-old game at this point, this game has god-awful glitches and bugs, and like shit that makes you want to fucking throw your head against a wall, like take your head off your shoulders and throw it at the wall, like that kind of level of frustration. And what I'm talking about, I think it has mostly to do with quick resume, because generally to fix these problems, what I would do is exit out of the game completely and then reboot the game. So if you haven't played this game and you're looking to play this game, my recommendation to you is, in between every play session, don't use quick resume. Just fucking cancel that shit out and restart the game the next time. Because so many times I would be in a battle in this game and I would be like towards the end of a battle, and then the game would just kind of forget that, like, oh, it's your turn to move. And it just wouldn't let me use my power points. It wouldn't let me move my character. It wouldn't let me select an attack or an item or do a goddamn thing. I would just be stuck. And it would just be stuck in battle mode, and I couldn't move and I couldn't do anything. And I would just have to restart the game. And it didn't bother me that much, because generally in this game, battles last anywhere from like 5 to 20 minutes. But there is this one battle, which I think is optional, but I definitely engaged in it. At the very end of the game, there's this one battle that could take upwards of like an hour to finish. It is a long ass battle. This is a fucking Warhammer board game battle type of situation. It is you versus like 4 factions of enemies, and it is progressive. Like, you move through basically this whole level to get from one phase of the battle to the next. And there was one night where I stayed up until 1 a.m. playing through this battle. And then I got to the very end of it where there was just one enemy left. And the game basically forgot that where I was, froze my character's power points, and wouldn't let me move, wouldn't let me choose an attack, wouldn't let me do a goddamn thing. The only option was to close the fucking game, reboot the Xbox, and then load back into my prior save before I engaged in the whole battle. And you can't save in the middle of combat, so I had to go all the way back and redo everything. And that was the fix. It worked, but holy shit, I was so disappointed when that happened. So definitely want to hold this game accountable for that. It's like, that it's one thing if that happened, if I played the game the week it came out, because we're all kind of conditioned to expect new games to have issues and to disappoint us. But for a game to be 3.5 years old and have this problem, like, what the fuck? I mean, I know Exile's a small team. I know this is the last project they really worked on before they got acquired by Xbox. and so, things were changing for them when this game was coming out, and they were in the process of becoming part of the Xbox family. I don't know what the excuse is, but dude, it's been 3.5 years, man. Fix this shit. It's bad. But that being said, I don't know. I would just say, not to hammer too much on the things I've already said about the game. It's just, this game has the compelling NPC dialogue, character interaction, world building, exploration, and everything that makes games like Starfield and Elder Scrolls and Fallout so special. And I really felt that playing this game. It's like, oh yeah, this is exactly the way I felt playing Skyrim for the first time a few years ago, and going, why the fuck did I not see what made this game so special all those years ago? Why did it take me this long to realize what this game was? And I had a very similar experience playing this game, but it was like an even more elevated version of that, where this game has a lot of humor, a lot of like Obsidian style humor that just really tickled me the right way. I'm like, this is really good shit. Like, the humor is, it's just that really funny, nerdy kind of like tee-hee, like I don't know. I can't describe it, so let me give you an example. Like, there's one scene, part in the game where I'm traveling to the northern mountains in Colorado. I'm actually traveling to Aspen to meet one of the sons of the patriarch, to confront them and fight them and whatever. And so I'm like traveling to Aspen, and I find this little Christmas village off the beaten path, and I'm like, okay, side quest opportunity, I'm definitely checking this out. What is this? It looks like Christmas over here. So I go there, and it's Santa's workshop, but Santa Claus is like this fucking drug dealing slaver who's like off the fucking rails, and he has all these elves working in his shop, and the elves, like, you talk to the elves and they're like, please, we're slaves here, free us from Santa Claus. And Santa Claus is having the elves make this drug that he is selling throughout the state of Colorado that's like fucking people up, and you have to basically free the slaves and fight Santa Claus and his cocaine-induced reindeer to save the slave elves from their life of servitude. And it's just so fucking silly, and they got like this ridiculous Christmas music playing in the background. And then when you kill Santa, you can take his drugs and sell them or ingest them yourself, and all this stuff. It's just such like ridiculous, nonsensical, like tee-hee kind of humor that it does that the game can be so straight-faced and serious. They're like, you're the goddamn Rangers, and you're fucking going around and fighting the patriarch's daughter and like trying to bring the resources back to the state of Arizona, like all this shit. And like the game's got like the serious tone, and it's trying to do its whole RPG quest thing. And then it's like, now you got to fight druggy Santa and his little slave elves. And it's like really weird and crazy like that. There's just like this crazy clown enemy faction that like straps dynamite to the backs of pigs and will like slap their asses and send them off at you to fucking kamikaze basically into your caravan. And it just really like weird, outlandish shit that will happen like that. It's just so fucking twisted and funny. And I love the game for that. So the humor was just ridiculous in there, but it's also like more captivating and brings you further into the world by being like, this is just so fucking silly. And then all the characters that you can recruit, you can have up to 6 characters in your squad, and all the characters are equally compelling. So like every time I come across the opportunity to recruit a new person, I'm like, God, I want to include you in my squad. It's like, who do I get rid of? And like, you can join forces with like this like AI faction of robots that doesn't have the ability to think and feel like humans, but they're more human than the humans, because the humans are so blindsided by their love for President God Ronald Reagan that they punish and murder innocent humans, because they're so blinded by their faith and their religion to be able to govern and treat humans regularly. So you have to like side with the AI robots and teach them the heart of human, to understand like the error of the people's ways. And it's just all this ridiculous shit. It's like, why am I doing all of this when the premise of the game is that the patriarch of the state of Colorado can save my people in Arizona, and I need to do this quest for him in order to save my people back home. And it's like, just all the ridiculousness that unfolds along that journey is so incredibly captivating and fun in a way that, Skyrim, really fun, really great world building, but I never laughed and got as engaged with the characters as I did in this game. Starfield, I'm a sucker for sci-fi. That game was like living out a fucking fantasy playing that shit. I loved it. But again, just never really latched on to any of the character interactions the way I do in this game. And because of that, and because honestly, the combat is fun. It's not super fun. It's not like it doesn't feel like I'm playing Halo or nothing, but it's pretty fun and engaging. And as someone who has to knock down the difficulty to pretty much the easiest mode just to get through a game like this, I can tell you, I feel like I was still challenged. I knew that I wasn't mastering the game, but I felt like I was like having to use my brain and my skill to try and get through the game despite playing it on easy mode. And so I can only imagine what a challenge this game would be for people who are veterans of the genre. And I don't know, man. I'll leave it at that, but I just got to say, for last time, as I move on to the next game I'm playing, Wasteland 3, to put a bow on it, this game is phenomenal. I'm not a huge buff when it comes to the Western-style role-playing genre, but, man, as I get more and more into these games, I fall deeper and deeper into the genre, and I think so far Wasteland 3 is the one that has excited me and captivated me the most. And so I just got to say, shout out to Nexile. You have made a huge fan out of me with this game, and I'm very excited for Clockwork Revolution, not that I wasn't already. And so that's it for what I've been playing. Other than that, I mean, last week we talked about it. Game Pass just got a bunch of cool new games. So I have been dabbling a little bit in Hot Wheels Unleashed 2. I don't really have much to say about that, though. It's really just more of Hot Wheels Unleashed, but with newer, cooler tracks, newer, cooler vehicles, and they added a little bit of a campaign story mode type deal that's just there for the kids. But it's fun. It's great. It's more of what made the first one great, but just with more features, more vehicles, and a little finer tune. So I don't really have anything else to say other than that, but hopefully this weekend I can start on a little bit of Diablo 4. I've got that installed on my Xbox Series X, so I'm hoping to get into that game a little bit in the coming days. But that is it, really, for what I've been playing. You guys, let's take a quick break, drink a little water, and then we'll get into the main news topics. All right, time to jump into the news. I'll be upfront and honest. It is a weird week for Xbox news. Nothing particularly stand out. However, I feel like, as always the case, it's like I mention that when the week warrants it being mentioned, and then I kind of regret saying anything because it's like, who gives a shit? We'll make the most out of it. We always have a fun conversation. And I'm particularly excited about the comments this week because I feel like we got a lot of good comments, some new writers, some fun ideas. So it doesn't matter. We got a good full show here to get into. But just to prep you in case you didn't already know walking in, yeah, they didn't announce the fucking new Xbox console. Phil Spencer isn't selling off any part of the brand. Nothing crazy's happening, but there's news nonetheless. So let's get serious and get right down into business. Okay, starting with our top story. From VGC, images show a white all-digital Xbox Series X console that is seemingly leaked. The low-quality images appear to show a white version of Xbox's existing console that's similar in form apart from the removal of its disk drive. Xputer reported last month that Microsoft was planning to launch a white all-digital Xbox Series X console this summer. It's claimed that the console will include few upgrade components, such as an improved heatsink, but that elsewhere on the box there will be no major enhancements. It's reportedly expected to retail for less than its current Xbox Series X counterpart, which does have a disk drive, released in November 2020 in MSRPs for $500 US, although it's often available for significantly less because people are not buying Xboxes. Legal documents leaked last September potentially laid bare key elements of Microsoft's gaming strategy for years to come, including plans to launch a redesigned all-digital Xbox Series X console codenamed Brooklyn. And while the plans may have changed since then, according to Phil Spencer, according to these documents, the console was targeting a November 2024 launch with a $500 US price point. So it doesn't look like this is Brooklyn, but it looks like something that is releasing maybe this year to take the place of that. So if all went well, Brooklyn was going to be that. Remember that everything leaked last year thanks to those FTC reports, or the FTC lawsuit and everything, where we saw the cylindrical looking Wi-Fi router type Xbox Series X that was all digital and was supposed to have some kind of changes and improvements and enhancements or whatever. And, Phil Spencer came out and said a lot of these plans are really old. A lot of these things have changed. And so a lot of people are suggesting that Brooklyn, that kind of mid-generation refresh, slimmed down digital version of the Xbox Series X has been axed, in that it looks like what we might be getting is this Xbox Series X all digital, where it's just the Xbox Series X, but it doesn't have a disk drive. It's white instead of black, and it costs maybe $50 to $100 less. So I don't know. That worries me not because I was really looking forward to the Brooklyn device, but rather because what this signals to me in conjunction with all the PlayStation shit that's been happening, assuming that these renders, these pictures are to be believed, that this is all 100% legit, and this is what Xbox is planning on releasing this summer or this fall, whenever they plan on putting it out. What this signals is like, hey, we had intended to do some kind of like mid-console, whether it was a Pro version or a slim model, some kind of redesign of the Xbox Series X. But what ended up happening is the console sales in the performance of the console is just so fucking minuscule and so underwhelming that it actually ended up being cheaper R&D wise to just not try and get the box shrunk down in size, to just not spend the time, investment, and money and research in trying to get a slimmer, sexier looking Xbox Series X out, and to rather just remove the disk drive and make the shell white instead of black and say, hey, look, here's a little kind of something. It's not necessarily a slim version. It's not necessarily a Pro version. It's not a mid-cycle refresh. It's just a diskless Xbox Series X. Here you go. Enjoy it. And that's me assuming the reasons behind why this thing exists. Of course, that's not, it's all conjecture, but it makes you wonder, because we know Xbox Series is way underperforming. It's doing worse than Xbox One did. And Xbox Series X can often be found on sale for $400, sometimes $350, which is a huge problem. And yeah, I mean, you're not going to follow that up with a super badass Pro model or a complete redesign when it's probably just cheaper to be like, just remove the disk drive and sell it, for a little less money. So this does have me a little bit worried. I mean, this isn't anything exciting, like in terms of the hardware itself, this isn't anything I would be like, oh yeah, I got to pick me up one of these. And I don't really know who else really would. Now, obviously the data suggests that more and more people are buying digital, and that the disk drive is slowly but surely becoming obsolete, and that we are marching towards that inevitable fate, that inevitable future, much to some of the listeners' chagrin, that one day the physical game will be kind of a novelty thing. And most if not all consoles will launch without dedicated disc or cartridge inputs, and that rather to play physical media, you'll probably have to buy some external drive or something that you can hook up to your home console in order to plug in your disc, because you're a boomer and that's how you like to play games. And that's fine. I'm not, joking aside, I'm not genuinely trying to pick on people for that. It's just that we know that that's the inevitability. That's where we're headed. And it just seems like that's the bare minimum Xbox could do. I mean, you remember at the end of the Xbox One generation, there was that diskless Xbox One that came out, I want to say around 2017, 18, maybe 18. And I don't know, this feels like we're just there with the Xbox Series X. It's like, fuck the Xbox One S, fuck the Xbox One X. Like, we're not doing anything like that this generation. We're just going straight to that all digital end of life cycle little device. And then we'll see in a year or two with the next iteration of Xbox hardware. And, it could be true that maybe they were playing the Brooklyn or some kind of device like that, but because the plans changed, like, what we're going to do is try to beat Sony to the jump with the next generation of hardware. Maybe that's why they canceled it, and now they're going, well, there's just no point in putting out a console like that when we're just a year or a year and a half or so away from the next generation of Xbox. And if that's the case, more power to you. It's just, I don't know, it seems like, let's try it to the best of our ability to just drop the conversation about like, ooh, is Xbox going the way of the dodo? And, how long until Xbox is just a service and all their games are on PlayStation, there's no more consoles. Let's try to avoid that conversation for a little bit and talk about it in this way, where Xbox is becoming a lot more iterative in the way that other tech companies do their products, like phones and laptops and things like that. And they're getting there much faster. And is it a response to the fact that their hardware is kind of just flailing and far behind in third place at all times? Yeah, probably. But is it kind of cool in some respect that this is probably what's happening with Xbox? Yeah, kind of. And what I mean by that is, PlayStation's going to continue for as long as it can to, follow this trajectory of PlayStation 5, 6 to 8 years later, PlayStation 6, 6 to 8 years later, PlayStation 7, for as long as Sony can justify doing that, they'll do that. And it's because it works for them. They're the market leader. They find success in playing that traditional route. But Xbox is not doing well at all by trying to play the traditional game and saying, oh yeah, here's our Xbox. We'll stick with it for 8 years and we'll see you again in 2028, with the next one. So why would Xbox necessarily be obligated or forced to have to constrain themselves to what PlayStation's doing. And obviously, a lot of that is just because, well, you got to wait until these parts become affordable enough to be able to make the next generation of hardware. But I don't know, why can't Xbox just try and do a phone type of situation or a laptop type situation where it's like, yeah, here's the Xbox Series X, and then in 4 or 5 years later, they're just like, then here's the Xbox Series Y, and then 3 or 4 years later, like, and here's the next version, and just keep putting out the new, like the iPhone 15, the iPhone 16, the iPhone, just keep doing that, because we're at this point anyway where we're never going to see these massive leaps in terms of like, console power. We're never going to see a PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2 or an Xbox to Xbox 360 type of jump in terms of what a console can look like and do and run. So might as well just accept that it's all iterative. I mean, it is kind of silly to even have to feel the need to have like a PlayStation 5 Pro or an Xbox One X or something like that, because at the end of the day, the jump from an Xbox One to an Xbox Series X or PS4 to a PS5 kind of feels iterative anyways. So like, why even have to have like these little half steps when every generation might as well at this point just be an iteration, and this would be a great way for Xbox to quickly get away from the whole like, oh, Gotham Knights and all these games, they don't run on Xbox Series S and Baldur's Gate 3 and this thing's holding everyone back. What's like, well, if Series S isn't pigeonholed into being this arbitrary 6 to 8 year generational device, then yeah, I mean, I guess they can just put out the next generation of Xbox in a year or two and just move on faster. And it can be like iPhone, where it's like, this app is supported by devices that can run iOS 14 and later, and you do something similar where it's like, hey, this device is going to be supported for as long as it can be, and then one day it just won't. But it's all just an iterative slew of hardware. And I think that's kind of the direction... It's kind of the direction I assume Xbox is going in with their console hardware sales just being so abysmal, and with the kind of jump from generation to generation not really being much of an opportunity for them to recapture market share or to really change the narrative in any way. It's like, much in the way that you flip the script in terms of how people consume games with Game Pass, you might as well flip the script and do the same thing with hardware and just be like, fuck it, we're not waiting 6 to 8 years to put out new hardware. We'll put out new hardware every couple of years, and it will just be Xbox, but the newer, flashier version. And maybe every couple of years we redo the dashboard, and the next version might have minor enhancements to the controller, but it's basically just going to be a newer Xbox. It's like the Dell XPS. It just gets updated every 2 years. What do you want to do about it? It's not some fucking like, oh, you got to sell your Dell XPS 13 from 2021 to get the one that just came out this year. It's like, no, you can hang on to that for a couple more years. But I don't know. I just feel like that's kind of the direction they have to head in, and that maybe the existence of a device like this digital Series X is a capitulation in a way of saying, okay, well, that's it. The Series X is the last time we're doing this kind of generational jump. And even in some respect, that thing is not as much of a generational jump as previous Xboxes were. So that is the only like logical conclusion. I mean, this is me drawing a lot of conclusions and mapping out a whole future for Xbox based on some leaked images of like a digital version of a pre-existing piece of hardware. So I know it's a lot, but I don't know, when I try to like mull it over and try to figure out the logic behind why they're doing this, where we're going, what's happening, what the plan is, I just feel like this is the thing that just makes sense, Like, no one's going to flip the fucking, oh, I got the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra last year, now I need to go get the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. It's like, the difference is like they tweaked the camera just a tiny bit, and now the new one has some AI features. It's like, calm the fuck down. Just upgrade when it's time to upgrade. And that's kind of might be where we were headed with Xbox, where it's like, okay, maybe you didn't even get an Xbox Series X, but they'll put out the Xbox Series X2 next year maybe, and you'll be like, it's been long enough. I think I'll jump on one of those because that sounds a lot more exciting than just buying a PS5 or something like that. And maybe they'll find some success in that strategy. I don't know. It's another gamble, and it seems like every fucking gamble Xbox takes doesn't really pan out for them, but I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful, and I like Xbox trying to pave their own way and do things their own way, and I'll always support them exploring new avenues and new ways of doing shit because, God, it keeps stuff interesting, that's for sure, at the very least. But yeah, I mean, it's just a Series X that's just digital and white. I don't know, it's boring, right? Boring. But I guess that's a way to keep the price down. I guess if that's all there is to care about. But I mean, that's what the Series S is for. So I'm not sure. I mean, sorry, one last thing to end on. You got to ask yourself, what is the market for Xbox consumers that don't want the Series S because it's not powerful enough, but do want the Series S because it's digital, but don't want to buy the Series X because it's too expensive, but if you could bring down the cost of it, they'd buy it. You know, it's this really like weird like this console. It's like everything in between what the Series S and X is. It's like the power of the X with the limitation of the S, the hardware limitation, like the physical limitation of the S, while also being priced in between the two. It's like, I don't know, maybe there is a good market for that middle ground, but it just seems like, I don't know, it just seems like you're kind of throwing out another device that will just further like split up the already low number of consumers that will buy your console. But, you know, and I don't mean to sound so dire. Xbox isn't selling like shit. It's just selling poorly relative to the competition. It is selling bad compared to PlayStation, compared to Nintendo Switch, but is it selling terrible as a piece of hardware? As you know, if there were no other video game consoles on the market, no. I mean, Xbox is selling fine, and they're making money off of Xbox as a division. It's good. It's all well, but yeah, they got to figure out a way to be more competitive. All right, let's move on and talk a little bit about some good news with Gearbox Entertainment. So this was kind of an old story at this point, but it happened right after last week's show, so we didn't really get to confirm it then. But Embracer Group have successfully officially announced that they have sold the Borderlands developer, Gearbox Entertainment, to none other than Take-Two Interactive, the publisher that published the original Borderlands games. The sale, which amounts to $460 million US, will see Gearbox become wholly owned by Take-Two, which already had an ongoing relationship with the developer. They say, quote, this is from Randy Pitchford, the CEO of Gearbox. He says, quote, as a significant long-term Embracer shareholder, I believe in the strategy for Embracer going forward and am completely convinced that the transaction is the best possible scenario and an obvious net positive for the arrangements for Embracer Group, for Take-Two, and for, of course, Gearbox. My primary interest is always with Gearbox, especially our talent and with our customers. I want to personally assure our fans that the game that this arrangement will ensure that the experience we have in development at Gearbox will be the best it can possibly be, end quote. And that game that they have in development is the next Borderlands game. The deal will see that Take-Two again has the rights to the Borderlands franchise and to Tiny Tina's Wonderland, as well as Homeworld, Risk of Rain, Brothers in Arms, and Duke Nukem, other IP owned by Gearbox. Studios included in the deal with this acquisition are Gearbox Software, Gearbox Montreal, and Gearbox Studio Quebec. But as mentioned before, they are hard at work on their next game, and it is the next entry in the Borderlands franchise. Take-Two president David Ishmailer said on, regarding the news, quote, with nearly 20 years of history working together, Gearbox has played an integral role in our success, giving their unique and creative ability to create interactive and entertainment experiences that feature beloved characters, exciting new worlds, and humorous storytelling. We are thrilled to welcome Randy Pitchford and his team of passionate, talented developers into 2K, and we look forward to releasing numerous projects in the future. We have loved partnering with Gearbox with every iteration of the Borderlands franchise and are excited to be in active development on the next installment of the series. So, not much to say there about the next Borderlands game. You can assume that it might be about 2 years out because Borderlands 3 came out in, 2019? Was that just before the pandemic, or was that the first year of the pandemic? The game is about 4 years old or so, so you can assume that if they're just making Borderlands 4, they did Tiny Tina's Wonderland and Tales of the Borderland 2, so they've done stuff since then, but you can assume the next Borderlands is probably about, it's maybe a 2026 game at the latest, is what I would assume. But they're working on the next Borderlands game, which is great. But as far as where Gearbox ended up, I feel like this is kind of actually best case scenario. It was either, I hope they end up kind of going independent, which I don't see how they would after, the way they probably staffed up and their publishing initiatives that they were taking on and just how expensive it's been to sustain Gearbox. You would assume that they kind of need a big AAA publisher to kind of take them under their wing in order for them to continue to sustain or exist as they currently do. And so I feel like this is kind of best case scenario. They're going home to the hand that used to feed them, and they're saying, "I'm sorry, Daddy, please welcome me back with open arms." I feel like this is, not in a less severe sense, but in a similar gesture, similar symbolism. It'd be like akin to like Bungie going back to Microsoft in a way. It's just like, yeah, this is the publisher you guys kind of broke bread with and cut your teeth working with, and now you're going back to them for a more permanent relationship. So I feel like, if anything, this is a way better fit than Embracer ever was. I feel like Gearbox was way too high profile of a developer to be under the Embracer umbrella anyway, because Embracer was supposed to be more like AA shit, and Gearbox has always been pretty fucking like, I don't know, they're not like, it's not like The Last of Us level AAA quality, but you know, they make higher profile, blockbuster, high budget AAA-esque games, and so I just feel like they were always kind of a weird fit for Embracer. So this is, I don't have too much to say about this other than good news all around. It's just exciting to see Gearbox land on their feet. Hopefully this isn't affecting people greatly. They're not having layoffs and consolidations and redundancies and all of that, and that this is just as good as it sounds on the outside. And so now we just look forward to the next Borderlands and stay happy for the team. So happy. And then the $460 million should help, Embracer Group, who's hemorrhaging money right now, maybe help keep them afloat a little longer. So hopefully they're able to make some good sustained efforts with the proceeds, with the funds raised from the sale of Gearbox. And you guys, surprisingly, I told you it was kind of a slower week. That's going to bring us to our Game Pass wrap up, and then that's really it. So Xbox Wire this week posted some new games coming to Game Pass this month that we can talk about. So this is for the first half of April. We got Super Hot Mind Control Delete Edition coming to Cloud Console and PC. That's available now. Also available now, Lego 2K Drive, available via cloud and console. I feel like if this didn't come out right next to Hot Wheels Unleashed 2, I would give this game a try, because when this game was originally released last year, I wanted to play this game. I thought this would be a great Game Pass or discount game, and here it is on Game Pass. Great opportunity, but man, I'm kind of busy with Hot Wheels Unleashed 2, so I don't know if I need another arcadey kind of kiddie license racing game right now, but nonetheless, great to see it there. Little Gator game comes to Cloud Console and PC on April 4th, which the game looks kind of cute. I got to look into that a little more. I might want to give that a go. As well as EA Sports PGA Tour is coming to Cloud Console and PC on April 4th via EA Play. And then Kona comes to Cloud and Console on April 9th. That is in the... nope, not that one. But also on April 9th, Botany Manor comes to Cloud Console and PC. Now, this is a botany puzzle solving kind of Zen game. It's a day one Game Pass title. Interesting pick for a day one Game Pass game, but I don't know, maybe it's really fucking good. I'll have to give it a try. After all, you don't knock it until you put it in a pot and watch it grow, because get it, botany? Fuck off. All right, Shadow of the Tomb Raider Definitive Edition comes to Cloud Console and PC April 11th. This is the second or third time this game has been on Game Pass, but welcome back. And then last, Harold Halibut comes to Cloud Console and PC day one Game Pass on April 16th. That one I actually don't know anything about, so I'll have to look into that one as well. But obviously not as high profile gets as the last round of Game Pass games we got, but some interesting gets, some good complimentary stuff in addition to all the really fun stuff we just got. Game Pass, I think, it's kind of on fire right now. It's got some really good shit there to eat from. But also, as is the case with any time we get games on Game Pass, we also lose a few. So the following 6 games are leaving Game Pass on April 15th. So play them now before they're gone. But Amnesia Collection, Amnesia Rebirth, Phantom Abyss, Research and Destroy, and Soma are all leaving the service on April 15th. And maybe most notably, Back 4 Blood is leaving the service on April 15th. I want to say I care, but at the same time, I don't know. Back 4 Blood ripped my heart out and disappointed me so much. Fuck you, Back 4 Blood. All right, guys, that's going to do it for all of our big news this week. Now, let's wrap up with some smaller news stories, the important enough news. Stories important enough to make the podcast, but not important enough to warrant their own discussions individually. We start off with, unfortunately, a couple layoff-related news stories. Ubisoft's confirmed the plans to lay off a further 45 employees as part of ongoing exercise to streamline operations. Last November, they announced 124 positions have been cut, mainly in Canada, but now they are laying off 45 more staff with global publishing and Asian Pacific division of the company. So a bunch of people are about to lose their jobs, and nothing good to say about that. Keeping with the bad news, Certain Affinity has laid off 25 staff members. The CEO says the mass layoff is the first time they've ever had layoffs in the 17-year history of the company. The prolific Texas-based support studio, which has collaborated on Halo and Call of Duty games ever since 2007, has to let go 25 employees. That's around 10% of its workforce, based on its website's About Us page, which touted a 250 plus staff. So obviously sad news there, especially as they were working on something Halo related, or at least that's been the rumor for a long time. Probably still are. And then last one here, this one's less sad because it's not, I mean, it is sad, but also there is some silver lining to this one. SEGA have announced plans to sell Relic Entertainment and cut 240 jobs in Europe. So 240 jobs, some of that cutting jobs is by selling Relic, but some of it is by laying people off. So yeah, not all good news. The Vancouver, Canadian-based Relic specializes in RTS games and real-time strategies, including Company of Heroes, Age of Empires, and Homeworld series. Hey, I think that has something to do with Halo Wars. Maybe they could do a Halo Wars or a World of Warcraft. Anyway, Sega said that they are selling Relic to a holding company, to be newly established by UK investment company Imona Capital LLP, but that further details weren't being disclosed due to the request of the transferee. The majority of the 240 job cuts will be made at, this is the sad part, this is the Halo Wars part, at Creative Assembly and Sega Europe, with a smaller number also being cut at Sega Hardlight, all three of which are based in the UK. So, of course, Creative Assembly was working on that Hyenas game that just got canceled, so they probably staffed up a lot of people to go from making real-time strategy games to making first-person shooter-type games, and now are laying a bunch of those people off. And so shout out to the Halo Wars 2 developer. We just lost a bunch of those guys. And then Sega Hardlight, which is the team that makes a bunch of the Sonic mobile games. In fact, they make the Sonic mobile game that I've played pretty much every year for like 6 years at this point, which is Sonic Forces Speed Battle. So, of course, our thoughts with those affected by the layoffs. Relic has since confirmed that they will continue supporting existing games following the news that they have been sold by Sega. So good for Relic for being able to find new life, and our condolences to the people at Creative Assembly, Sega Hardlight, Certain Affinity, and Ubisoft, because that fucking blows. iCronky writes in and says, okay, so Relic is now independent from Sega. So now Xbox can gobble them up. From there, they can make Halo Wars 3, StarCraft 3, Warcraft 4. It'll be perfect. It will be perfect because Blizzard, now owned by Xbox, is talking about wanting to license out Warcraft if they find the right partner and the right game. Here you fucking go. If you're not going to make Warcraft 4, let's make Relic do it. I'm all for it, Cronky. I don't know that we need to buy them, but maybe Xbox can at least work with them, come up with some kind of arrangement. I'd be all for it. I think this is a great idea. Let's continue to daydream together. Alrighty, guys, we got a couple of small news stories to run through as we wrap up here. Ubisoft has confirmed they will hold their Ubisoft annual Forward event on June 10th, around the week of Summer Game Fest. So be on the lookout for their big event this year. Bungie will showcase Destiny 2's final expansion, The Final Shape, next week on April 9th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. They'll have a half-hour stream event, followed by a worldwide premiere trailer. The Final Shape expansion is due out on June 4th. Next up, The Verge and VGC report. Microsoft is working on an AI chatbot, which could take the place of customer support staff for Xbox. Ooh, yay! Displacement of jobs. As reported by The Verge, the company has been testing a new AI-powered chatbot, which uses embodied AI character that animates when it answers support questions. The chatbot, which is currently named the Xbox Support Virtual Agent, is being tested internally at Microsoft, but the report claims that the testing pool has been expanded in recent days. If the test is successful, it could mean that the AI assistant could end up handling support for all Xbox customers at some point in the future. The AI could theoretically help users with a number of problems ranging from broken Xbox consoles to resolving paid subscription issues, etc., etc. So it's always cool to see technology expand and become greater and be able to do more than it does. And it always sucks to see people lose their jobs. So that is a kind of shit situation there. And then finally, Microsoft has officially revealed that the latest Xbox Series controller, the Nocturnal Vapor Special Edition wireless controller, will be available for pre-order now for $69.99 US and will launch next week on April 9th. So the leaked controller is real. We get these all the fucking time. Leaked controller, confirmed controller, it's a controller. Guys, that's it for everything this week. That's all of it, except for the best. We save the dessert for last. The comments, the shouts from youtube.com, you know how it goes. Head on over to youtube.com, Click on Xbox On Podcast, latest episode, drop a comment, say anything nice, anything mean, anything in between. I'll read it on this motherfucking podcast, and we will discuss to our heart's content. Thank you all for writing in. We have 8 entries to go through this week, starting with Good Boy RS2MQ. I'm just going to call you Good Boy, who wrote in and said, "You are known as the best Xbox solo podcaster." Now, that is not me patting my back. Thank you, Good Boy, for writing in. That is you responding to last week when I said, what do I call this podcast? You know, people are like, the number one Xbox podcast on the internet. The podcast hosted by 3 guys who all have enlarged colons. It's like, I don't fucking know what to call this podcast. And so, thank you, Good Boy. Thank you for the compliment. Thank you for writing in. And welcome to Xbox On. Good boy. You are a good boy. I'm petting your head. You are such a good boy. I like petting your head, good boy. All right, let's read a couple comments that kind of expand on some discussions we've been having recently, last week, couple weeks, talking about the uncertain future of Xbox, where they are in the industry, and you know where we're going. I want to start out with a comment from none other than Mr. Sexy Ass Sam Frito, who writes in and says, "When Sega Dreamcast was tanking, my only thoughts were, I guess Sega will have to make all their own games because publishers and devs aren't taking a chance on a dying piece of hardware. Never wanted to see Xbox in the same predicament, but here we go. Phil, you built a great box, now you have to say no one has to use... You built a great box, now you say no one has to use it. How can I not feel betrayed? I don't want to go play a PlayStation, and I already have so much love for Nintendo. I already have as much love for Nintendo as I can. Don't make me think outside my Xbox." I like what you did there. "I just want to hold on a little longer and not be the butt of jokes." Great show. I actually love this comment. As is always the case, Sam Frito always writes great comments, sometimes with some really funny humor, sometimes with some thought-provoking stuff. This is one of the more thought-provoking ones where I just feel like this kind of encapsulates the feeling, right? I don't know that what's going on with Xbox is as dire as what happened to Sega in the late 90s, early 2000s. It might be. I think it's just currently a little too soon to tell. But it could be. And at the very least, there are definitely echoes of what Sega went through that, you know, pardon us if we're all a little PTSD'd from what happened 20 something years ago with Sega, but it feels like something like that could be happening with Xbox. And so it's kind of hard not to draw parallels, not to draw comparisons. Again, even if nothing like this is about to happen to Xbox, maybe if Xbox sticks around as a very strong third contender in the hardware space for a very long time, I don't know. But I think it's reasonable for people to at least, you know, for their minds to conjure up the comparisons and to at least wonder. And so I feel like this comment really does encapsulate that, not insecurity as like, I'm a fanboy and I need my brand to perform well, but that insecurity as like, I'm a fan of Xbox and I've enjoyed the place Xbox has been and the way it's served me over the years. And I got to be honest, it would suck to see that go away. And I feel like this encapsulates that insecurity and that kind of disappointment in a way that's really relatable and something I really appreciate as a fan of Xbox. So I appreciate writing in, Sam Frito. Your comment, I wanted to get really fucking melodramatic about this. So your comment reminded me of a really good lyric from a really excellent song from a really excellent band on one of their greatest records. As aptly put by singer, writer, frontman Dan Soupy Campbell in the pop punk band The Wonder Years 2011 record on the track Don't Let Me Cave In. He says, quote, "There comes a day when you rectify who you are with who you want to be with, and I can't make those two things coexist." That right there is a song about a person realizing their relationship isn't working with the person they are, the life they live, and the person they want to be for the person they are dating or seeing, and how that's forcing a wedge between a couple and they're probably breaking up. That is not what I'm talking about, but I think the words still apply to Xbox in the sense that you can kind of see this Xbox that's like, hey, we're all about our diehard fans. We got the hardware, the most powerful console in the world. We've got the best controller. We've got the best online infrastructure. We got the best services. We got this amazing subscription service where you can play all the best games day one on our awesome platform, world's most powerful console. Did I mention that? Best controller, best online services, really great party chat features, and all the bells and whistles plus your achievements and decades at this point of gamer score and game progress and stats that you've accumulated. It's all here on this one platform. place. It's called the Xbox. It's this piece of hardware we develop and we're really proud of, and it's for you, our number one diehard fans, and we love you guys, and you're the fucking heartbeat of this brand. But as we grow and evolve, we also want to take all those fucking games you love and put them on our number one competitor's platform. That's right, the PlayStation 5. We want them to play all of our games, and we want that to not conflict at all with our main console business. We also want people to be able to enjoy our excellent Xbox streaming service, Game Pass, as well as our library of streamable of a subscribable game, our games library through the PC and through mobile devices and through all sorts of devices, and basically every screen's an Xbox, really, if I'm being honest with you. So we want to basically have our cake and eat it too. We want to be everywhere but also on Xbox, and we want people to play us everywhere but also on Xbox, and we want our hardware to sell well so we can continue to make hardware, and we want you fans to know that we do this all for you, our most diehard fans. That's right, you, mister, who bought an Xbox 360, an Xbox One, and now an Xbox Series X. We want to let you know the reason we're putting our games on PlayStation, and we want people on mobile phones to subscribe to Game Pass is because we want to make really great games. We want to deliver great games for you. That's why Starfield is definitely not eventually coming to PlayStation. I have my arms crossed. I'm not lying. I swear to fucking God, we're doing it all for you. Listen, man, can't make those two things coexist. Dan Soupy Campbell knew damn well in 2011 when he fucking wrote that song, and then I heard it at Warped Tour, that it was all about coming to grips that sometimes you grow and you learn and you look at yourself in the mirror and you have that realization where, hey, I once was this person. I see myself as this person. I want to be this person. But the reality of the decisions I've made, the people I've connected with, the ways I've treated others, is that I am this person. So listen, man, okay? You can't go putting our games on PlayStation. You can't go fucking making the goddamn Game Pass day one PC for iPhone and then be like, it's all about you, little $500 Xbox Series X owner. What the fuck, man? I'm like your girlfriend sitting here wondering why you don't make time for me while you're fucking in Europe traveling on tour with the band, and I'm just saying, I know you love me, but where's the time? Where's the attention? What about me? If I'm at the center of your life, why are you always with the boys on tour? And I'm just trying to say, Xbox, I've been with you for a long time. I love you. I buy your hardware. I subscribe to your services. I buy your games. I spend money on your ecosystem. So why are you fucking around with PlayStation behind my back when I just need you to come home and pleasure me the way you used to? Okay, thank you. Sam Frito, awesome. Dan Campbell, awesome. The Wonder Years, still one of the best bands. If you haven't listened to the Wonder Years, do me a favor, go listen to the Wonder Years. In fact, you can start with this album. It's a phenomenal album. It's called Suburbia. I've given you everything, and now I'm nothing. Start to finish, that album's a fucking masterpiece, I swear to God. Anyway, we're moving on to our next comment from Cargo Runner 9960. Cargo Runner, thank you for writing in. I appreciate you writing in for the first time. You were excited. You wrote quite a few comments, and I do appreciate that. Just for the sake of me being transparent to you and just being fair and all that. I did include all your comments, but I did include a handful of them, and I'm excited to get into them. Starting with this very comment that we're about to read. It says, "Really enjoyed your logical breakdown discussion style. I totally agree with your view that exclusive games are important to survive in the console market. Phones are very different. There are lots of competition based on features such as cameras, screen size, memory cards, etc. You buy a console only for the software. And exactly as you say, if there's a great exclusive software game, if there's great exclusive software, then you will buy multiple consoles. So people do buy a Switch just for Nintendo exclusives. You can trust Nintendo. You can buy a Switch 2 knowing that there will be world-class exclusive titles for all of Switch 2. Trust in the Xbox brand. Trust in the Xbox brand is at an all-time low. Halo Infinite, Redfall, Starfield, none of these are world-class. You only have Forza Horizon and Flight Simulator. I think a lot of people would buy a Series S if there was a reason to, but there just isn't. Microsoft believe, just like Epic, that you can buy fans with cheap games and free games, but it doesn't work like that. Hence, the disappointing Game Pass growth, which is a fraction of the projected growth. With trust in Xbox being at an all-time low, unless they start releasing a lot of world-class exclusive games in the next couple of years, then the next generation of Xbox will be the worst selling ever. You don't invest in a console unless you totally trust the platform to deliver amazing games." Cargo Runner, I think you said this pretty well, and this is a little difficult for me to admit because I have to try to remove my emotional attachment to some of these things from the reality, because while I personally play a game like Halo Infinite, see that it is far from perfect, far from the best Halo game, and has many flaws, I think Halo Infinite is a really great AAA game that's definitely worth $60 day one. Enjoy. It's great. And, if it weren't for Game Pass, I would have had zero regret spending $60 buying that game the day it came out, taking a day off work and playing it from start to finish and enjoying it, because it's a great game. I really enjoy Halo Infinite. Redfall, I'll give you that, whatever. Starfield, again, I think Starfield is phenomenal. I think this game is criminally underrated and underappreciated, and I had a phenomenal time with this game and would have been absolutely happy to put $70 down day one for this game, and I don't regret a single second I spent playing it. It was a really, really wonderful game. So I have to separate the fact that I see those games as world-class and I see those games as some of the better games to come out in the past 5 years in gaming, from the fact that that's just not where we are as a market. And try not to be as much of an asshole as I know I am, but like, I know world-class to people today means fucking Elden Ring and Baldur's. Ooh, if I get to see a Slytherin girl's nipples, then I'll be so fuck. That sounds like I'm talking about an underage girl. I'm talking about the fucking snake girls in Baldur's Gate 4, but then I slipped in Harry Potter because whenever I become an ass, I make fun of Harry Potter, and Harry Potter had a popular game last year. I'm not talking about looking at an underage British high school girl. Please, I'm talking about Baldur's Gate. You guys know I like to make fun of the Baldur's Gate nudity because it's fucking weird. It's fucking weird, okay? It's weird. I'm sure the game's great, but it's fucking weird. Okay, moving on. Absolving myself of any sin because I'm my own arbiter. The point here is that, yeah, it's kind of frustrating in a way because the stuff that I think consumers agree is world-class today, I think is like some of the least compelling shit in gaming in a long time. So when I see that, like, the way to become a super hot, successful, popular game is to make something like Breath of the Wild 2 or Baldur's Gate 3 or fucking, what's it called? The Witcher and stuff like that, I'm like, okay, so games have taken we've taken a dip in terms of what we want from games, because I'm a little boomer boy stuck in the old ways of like, yeah, a really good game is like Halo 3 or Gears of War 2 or Mass Effect or something like that. So I'm still very Xbox 360 oriented. And so I see games like Starfield and Halo Infinite and I'm like, fuck yeah, Xbox is killing it. They got the big games. What do you mean the Xbox doesn't have games? But you are right. They're delivering games that people like me like, and that there's enough of an audience to justify their existence. But they aren't putting out the games that they need to put out in order to light the world on fire. And if you want to do that, you got to do whatever the fuck it is Sony does, because I guess they do nothing wrong. They put out a fucking game and everyone buys it. And no offense to Sony, they put out great games, but it seems almost infuriating the way it works for them. And then these other games that light the world on fire, like Baldur's Gate and all that stuff. I don't know what the answer is for Xbox, because I do think you're right. Regardless of what games we agree are and aren't world-class, regardless of my taste versus your taste, and whether or not we as Xbox fans are feeling satiated with the games we're getting, there is no denying that the reason why Xbox is in the position it's in is because the exclusive content that the platform has is not the content that is water cooler moment, lighting the world on fire, getting everyone excited. And don't get me wrong, Starfield was close. I think Starfield did have a big water cooler moment kind of for a little bit there. And there were people, just anecdotally speaking, like people who don't normally play games who were reaching out to me and asking about Starfield and interested in Starfield. So Starfield was close. It wasn't Elden Ring close, but it was close. And if they can continue to operate in that range and dig a little deeper, I feel like they're on the right track. But you're right. It's that I feel like to some extent Xbox has kind of been, and this is why they've needed to buy so many studios, is to kind of buy their way out of this. They've been so stuck in terms of like in the times of like, oh, how do we make a great game? Well, we'll make the big games we made in the 360 days that people love so much. But people don't want Gears of War 6. They want to be surprised and delighted by a medieval knight that you can customize and put on an 80-hour adventure and watch his penis swing around as he fights lizard people, because that's cool. They want to watch you play Elden Ring and get fucking crushed again and again and again and again and again by a giant 40-foot tall monster with a fucking pot, like a plant pot for a head. And because this is what you guys fucking now I'm just getting mad. Now I'm I'm going from trying to be reasonable to just get you guys. You got to stop. This is the problem. Is you guys like bad games? Okay. All right. Case closed. You guys like bad games. Go listen to Wonder Years. The podcast is over. I'm pissed off. All right. I can't handle this. You guys fucking buy 7 Nintendo Switches per person, but you motherfuckers can't. God damn it. God damn it. I'm talking. I mean, what do you want me to do? Some of these characters literally have like fucking tongues for heads. What do you want me to do? And you guys are playing it. Oh, Elden Ring is the most sophisticated game I've ever played. He's got a fucking dog ear for a face, man. What do you want me to say? Oh, because the parry mechanic is... Fuck off. I don't give a shit about your friend Perry, okay? We're moving on. But no, silliness aside, Cargo Runner... You hit the nail on the head, but I think at this point, it's not like it was in the Xbox One generation where it's like, Xbox needs to deliver the games to turn the tides. It's like, I think at this point, the brand has been damaged for so long. It's like, I just don't know that they could even turn it around for themselves at this point. I'm not trying to be so sardonic and so like negative. It's just, I don't know that they could turn it around. Even if they tried. I feel like at this point, it's so bad for Xbox that they can put out a good game and it will get just mentally dinged just for being an Xbox game. But you are right. The answer to all their problems is not to buy their way through the success they want and give out free games and give great value. Those things are great additive stuff. Like they have all the side dishes and the desserts and the fucking ambiance and everything, but their entrees suck, dude. It's like a steakhouse where the steak tastes like dog shit. But, the Brussels sprouts are amazing, and the decor on the walls is great, and the atmosphere and the service is wonderful, but the ribeye tastes like dog shit, and that is kind of Xbox's situation, where I like that dog shit steak, don't get me wrong, I'm happy to eat the Halo Infinite steak, but I know most gamers are like, yeah, I don't give a shit how goddamn good your baked potato is, I want a fucking ribeye, and your ribeye tastes like doggy doo-doo, and you can't just go buy the ribeye from the steakhouse down the store and sell it to me, because I've played Call of Duty, and guess what? That's not the next best thing. That's just you guys owning Call of Duty now. So it's not, come up with your own thing. So I don't know. Thank you for writing in. I don't feel like I said anything really there. I just kind of ranted. But Cargo Runner, thank you for writing in. We'll come back to you in a minute because you have a different topic I really want to get to. But in the meantime, let's take an Arctic intermission where Arctic Chief writes in for the first time in a while. Arctic Chief, what's up, you beautiful bastard? He says, yo! I know it's not an Xbox comment, but I met Hayden Christensen this weekend at the Indianapolis Comic Con, and it was amazing. I also got to meet Nolan North, who signed my Ghost statue and said, "Eyes up, Guardian," and told me, "You're going to love the final shape. It's going to crush you." Man, as if I wasn't hyped enough. I couldn't forget about the actor who played Gimli? Oh, Gimli. Yeah, Gimli from Lord of the Rings. I know who that is. The little short dwarf elf guy. Gimli from Lord of the Rings, lol. We met him too, and he stayed in character the whole time with us. It was awesome. As for gaming, I'm getting back to my weekly Destiny 2 grind. Hope you're having a great week. Arctic Chief, thank you for writing in. Good to hear from you again. I don't really know what to do with any of that comment because it's just catching up. But you know what? It's good to hear from you. It's good to catch up. And also, I'm glad you had fun. That sounds like a really great time. Glad you got to go to Comic-Con and meet Hayden Christensen, and I hope there weren't too many people annoying him to make the sand meme because I'm sure he probably hates that. And I'm glad you met Nolan North, who just so happens to voice 99% of male characters in the video game space. But also him teasing the new Destiny expansions. That's pretty fucking cool. But yeah, man, that's awesome. And Destiny 2, back on the grind, baby. I need to get back into Destiny. It's been a long time. I haven't really touched Destiny since Lightfall happened. So it's been a year at this point. But yeah, man, that's awesome. I'm excited for you. I'm happy. Good to see you, man. I hope you're well. And tell the kids I ate all their fucking Captain Crunch, and now they're gonna have to eat overnight oats. So that sucks. All right, let's do one little wrap-up comment talking about some Phil Spencer stuff before we get into Cargo Runner's other topic that I want to get into, where Mike Clark writes in and says, "Every time Philip Spencer opens his mouth, a kitten gets curb stomped. I'm so tired of this double talk between we believe in physical and proof here's another console without a disc drive. Truth of the matter is that Xbox has been dying for a long time, but Game Pass will live on. Not to mention it's $10 on PC. Makes my day better hearing the pledge, lol. Just for you, just for you. We'll do the Xbox pledge, so please take a moment to rise. Put your right hand over your left chest, breast, heart, whatever. I pledge allegiance to the brand of the gaming and entertainment division of Microsoft and to the shareholders for which it stands. One business, under Phil, relatively profitable, with gamer score and world premieres for all. You may be seated. Mike Clark, yeah, I mean, this would have been a great follow-up comment to read after I went on and on about the Wonder Years. But, yes. Yeah, I know. It's frustrating, man. It's just, I think maybe the most confusing part of it all, most frustrating part of it all is that Xbox just talks too much is the problem at this point. Because sometimes I think it's like, man, the team at Xbox, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. You think about like that story that we talked about last week about the guy from GamesIndustry.biz talking about how the conversation going around GDC this year was people are like, I don't know if we should put our games on Xbox. We don't know if we can trust an Xbox. We don't know how much longer Xbox will be around. And that was kind of the talk of the town. And the thing is, it's like, I feel like so much of the situation Xbox is in right now is because Xbox's leadership talks about so much shit they should not bring up. They're constantly pivoting. They're constantly doing new initiatives. They're constantly changing their messaging and their vision, and they're constantly communicating it with their audience. If everyone just shut the fuck up and Xbox didn't say a goddamn thing and just made video games and put out video games on their platform for people to play, there'd be a lot less opportunity for people to be like, yeah, Xbox is clearly just going to jump ship to PlayStation. Xbox is clearly getting out of the market altogether. People would just have nothing to talk about because you wouldn't put so much fucking fuel on the fire, but they do anyway. And I guess that's why it is the way it is. But yeah. All right. Let's do a quick, Tim R writes in before we get into the Cargo Runner conversation of topic of discussion and says, I'm looking forward to Baldur's Gate 4 now that I know Larian Studios won't be making the game. Ideally, it will be much less horny. Unfortunately, it probably won't be. I won't be able to, probably just won't be picked up by anyone else, but I can hope. I'll be honest, I have words Baldur's and Gate blocked on all social media, so I don't know what's going on in the world of Baldur's Gate because I'm tired of hearing about it, man. No, that's not true. I don't actually have that, But who should make Baldur's Gate 4? I'd say give it to Toys for Bob. They're a free agent now. All right, let's circle back to Cargo Runner. This is a really interesting idea that was proposed I want to get into. I feel like I have a lot to say about this, but maybe I don't. I don't know. Let's get into it. Cargo Runner's second comment is about what I'm titling the Xbox UI problem. Does Xbox have a UI problem? He says, the problem is that Xbox cannot create a user-friendly UI, user interface. They can make world-class hardware, but their UI is so bad that you just don't want to use their devices. So they could make a handheld device, but you can pretty much guarantee it will be terrible to play on. Talking about an Xbox handheld. The Xbox One, Windows Phone, Zune, all bad UI systems. Keep your fucking mouth shut, Jesse. Just get through the comment. The bad UI has massively reduced the sales and uptake of these devices. The Xbox 360 team were passionate gamers that made a great UI with lots of innovations like achievements. Then the corporate accountants took over. They stopped investing in exclusives and created the Xbox One with a really terrible anti-consumer UI that seems based on the failed Windows Phone. It was online. It was online only, delayed, unreliable, achievement system. 9 to 10 years later, none of the major problems have been fixed. Xbox will just delete your screenshots with no warning. It took me 8 years to copy the screenshots to USB, and it doesn't even create subfolders for each game like the PS5 does. The Xbox experience /platform is now so far behind Nintendo, Sony, and mobile phone makers that is absolutely the worst platform to play games on. They desperately need to fix this existing Xbox and PC Game Pass platform before we expand to new hardware. We have been waiting 9 to 10 years for Xbox to catch up with Sony after the Xbox One released. Like a lot of people have given up waiting. You see the Xbox Series X is for sale or swap to PS5. See posts like this all the time on Facebook. Okay. Couple things. Let me go through the lighter stuff first. I remember very vividly in 2013-14 when Xbox One was brand new, there were a lot of issues about UI features that were on the 360 that weren't there on the Xbox One, party features that were missing, achievement features that were missing. What the fuck is wrong with this? I remember that. Don't get me wrong. I remember that. But my recollection is that most of these things, if not everything, was addressed. As for screenshots being deleted, I'm sure they do get deleted after so many years if you don't do something with them, but I don't know. I have screenshots saved on my Xbox that are from the Xbox One. I definitely have screenshots that are 8 or 9 years old at this point. God fucking damn it. Xbox One's over 10 years old. What the hell? Anyway, that's not what I'm talking about. God damn, we're all dying. That's not what I'm talking about. I don't see that part particularly being an issue, but I don't play PlayStation 5, so I can't compare how much better their interface is. However, I do play Nintendo Switch, and I can tell you, this is not a subjective take. This is just factual truth. The Nintendo Switch has a fucking god-awful trash UI. The reason the Nintendo Switch UI is so usable is because it only has like 2 fucking features. It's like comparing the GameCube to the Xbox 360. It's like one of them doesn't even have a dashboard. So I don't really know what to say to you in that regard. I mean, the Nintendo Switch, you go to the eShop and you still can't even fucking navigate that thing properly after 7 years. So I reject that notion. Kindly, politely, but I reject that notion. Where you really lose me is pretty far at the top of this comment where you say the Xbox One, Windows Phone, and Zune all had bad UI systems. My guy, I appreciate you listening to this podcast. Welcome to the show. Please continue to listen if you are enjoying the show. I'm not trying to turn you away or make you feel bad or anything, but respectfully, you have wandered into a space, okay, where I am not just a big old Xbox boy. I am a diehard Windows Phone fan. I loved the Zune. I love the Xbox One. The Xbox One's probably my favorite Xbox generation. And I love Surface. I'm a little bit of a Microsoft cuck in some ways, I guess you could say. But you will never catch me in a million fucking years saying that Xbox One, Windows Phone, Zune, I'm going to say something really controversial, Windows 8 had a bad UI. I adore that UI. The Metro design language, especially on Xbox and Windows Phone. Oh my God, dude, I don't think we will ever reach an aesthetic with any consumer tech product that will ever make me a fraction as happy as that UI did. It's so vain to sit here. It's so silly to sit here and talk about how like the artificial happiness that was brought to me by the era of Windows Phone and Windows 8, but it is genuine that my overall happiness and satisfaction has decreased in the years since the demise of Windows Phone and Windows 8 and all these things. So kindly, I disagree with you full-heartedly. Now, that's not to say that obviously some of these UI decisions back in that era of Microsoft didn't rub people the wrong way. I'm not a fucking alternate history retard or something like that. Dumb. Not supposed to use that word. But anyway, well, fuck me. Yeah, I'm aware Windows 8 sucked. People hate Windows 8. I'm not new to that. I'm not new to that idea. I know people hate Windows 8. I know people didn't like the Xbox One user interface when it first launched. I just don't feel like that is at even remotely an issue today, though. Nobody complains really about Windows 11, about the Xbox. I feel like the only Xbox UI stuff I ever hear people complain about is like ads on the homepage, really. Like, that's it. For the most part, I think the Xbox UI and all that stuff, Xbox's kind of design language, that's a huge part of what I've always loved about Xbox, and part of what makes me want to, there's like little details of subconscious things that make you happy and stick with a platform. That's part of it for me with Xbox. I love that shit. I love the boops and the bops and all the sounds that the menus make as you navigate and the way it looks and everything. To me, it's sexy as hell. I think Xbox looks and runs great. I don't know, man. I just disagree wholeheartedly. Like, I feel like that first comment, you kind of hit the nail on the head with their software issue, and I just don't feel like genuine consumers, like people who are truly on the fence trying to decide what platform to buy, are judging any ounce of that decision based on the UI of Xbox versus PlayStation. I don't believe for a fucking second. I think casual people are going to the store and deciding what console to buy based on PlayStation has Spider-Man, but Xbox has Starfield. I think those are conversations that are had, or like, my friends are all on PlayStation and none of my friends are on Xbox. Or like, I really liked Xbox back in the 360 era, but all my friends are on PlayStation now. I think these are conversations that are had, but I don't think people are like, I don't fuck Xbox. I don't like the way the UI looks. Xbox's UI, I think, is pretty great at this point. It's not even aesthetically my favorite one they've ever had, but I think it's functionally great and aesthetically solid. I don't know, man. Their hardware is sexy as hell, too. You can't say anything about that. To each their own, man. Cargo Runner. Hope you're having a great weekend. I appreciate you listening and writing in, but I just got to firmly disagree with you on this one. Sorry about your screenshots. All right, last comment of the week is reserved for none other than the ultimate Mamma Jamma, Mr. Headhunting Halo, who writes in and says, "Who's loving Final Fantasy? I never knew it was so good. Lol, trying to finish this little season of Infinite since the Yappening 2 is next Tuesday. Do you think we're going to get a new console this winter?" Well, we kind of talked about that already this week, so I guess I don't have to answer that. But, Headhunting Halo, why do you keep coming onto my fucking podcast talking about Final Fantasy? I know there's a little bit of Final Fantasy support on the Xbox platform, but Xbox is not a Final Fantasy safe haven. So I need you to do me a favor and go play, what's the Japanese role-playing game that's prevalent on Xbox? Persona, Phantasy Star Online 2. Fuck, just don't even play Japanese role-playing games. Just go play Wasteland 3. Headhunting Halo, I can't just be happy for you. I'm not that decent of a human being. So I need you to become excited about something I like a lot so that I can feel like we have this thing in common. So with that understood, please stop playing Final Fantasy, stop having a good time, and go play the games I'm enjoying so that you can be a reflection of the world I want to live in. So obviously I'm joking. Headhunting Halo, I'm glad you're enjoying Final Fantasy. It makes me smile to see you having a good time. And honestly, it's adorable. It's adorable just watching you run around and frolic and be a happy boy. And for that, if I were near you right now, I would put one hand on your shoulder and do one of those like fatherly squeezes just to let you know, like, I'm proud of you, boy, but I'm not going to give you a hug because that's homo shit. You know, like one of those kinds of things. And then you know, there would just be like a silent embrace, and then that would be that. Because Headhunting Halo, your happiness is my happiness, and I hope you enjoy your Halo Infinite event this week. And that's it. That's it for this episode of Xbox On Podcast. Going back to the top when I said episode 253, you know what happens there. Maybe I was talking about the part where I accidentally dropped the R word, and God, if this podcast had more than like 170 people listening to it, I might actually get in trouble for that. So I do apologize for the usage of that word. Please do not come to my house in the middle of the night and kill me. That's it for Xbox On episode 253. You guys have a great week. Enjoy your oats. It's a heart healthy food. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your health. Be good to one another. Treat people with kindness, love, and respect. Try to do yourself a favor and pay homage to Windows Phone and Metro design, and just go watch some YouTube videos appreciating the glory days of Windows Phone, because there's nothing wrong with that design. It's a fucking beautiful design. But until next week, I'm your host. Probably going to play another royalty-free song this week because I didn't think of a song to put in here. But until next week, be kind, be good, be happy, be a gamer, go Diablo, and power your dreams.